Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Strange. I am your host, Dave Cruz, and we have a great evening in store for you tonight. We're going to be speaking with Leslie Johnson III. We're also going to be speaking with Mr. Steve Bunker, about the Miller Bigfoot document. It's going to be a really good evening. I'm really, really excited, and I'm looking forward to it. And you can follow us on Google Hangouts. We're streaming live from YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter at Strange Days 2015. The hashtag is BeStrange with the letter B and then the word strange after that. We also have a Beyond the Strange Facebook page where I post most of the show's info and updates. There is a Google Hangouts. And we also have our email is beyondthestrange@gmail.com. And check us out at Beyond the Strange website. It's the beyondthestrange.com. Keep checking for updates. We're always fixing that website, fixing it for you guys, giving you the latest and greatest. And finally, you can join with your Gmail account. You can join the Hangouts on air or call in on the Skype. The ID is Strange Days 2015. Tonight we do have Mr. Bunker on the Skype, so I will be looking for phone calls as well. The Skype ID will probably not work too well tonight, but you call in with the phone number 707-200-3520. Again, the number is 707-200-3520. And after a while, we'll get some Q&A going. I'd like to introduce Mr. Leslie Johnson III. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing tonight, Dave?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about this document. I think this is probably the most excited I've ever been about a piece of paper in my life.
Yeah, actually,
it's not just a piece of paper.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'd like to thank you for inviting myself and Steve to do a complete show about it tonight, because when I saw it, I couldn't think of anything else but to get my brother in Bigfoot, Steve, and get it on your show. And thank you so much for letting us talk about this document. It truly could be game-changing. It really could.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with you there. And speaking of Mr. Bunker, Mr. Bunker is a big-time Bigfoot enthusiast. He is our brother in our Fate or Not family. He's been around since day one with the show also, and with Fade to Black, and all of us have just grown together, and we just keep we keep supporting each other and trying to find the truth and help those who don't really fully understand. But with that, I want to say, how you doing tonight, Steve?
I'm doing good, Dave.
Right on, man.
I got cut off there early, brother.
Oh man, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right, brother.
I'm glad you're with us now.
Yep.
So I'm excited, guys.
How you live?
Hey, I'm doing good tonight, Steve. I'm glad you're joining me. I'm glad we're able to do this show together, because if there's one thing we both love, it's we both love talking about Bigfoot. So, and this is a big game-changing moment, I think, finding or digging this document out of the internet where it's been stuck for quite a few years, actually.
Yep, that's what this show is all about. Just bringing everything that we can to the light. And a little bit of background on this this Bigfoot Miller document. Unless you want to, again, gentlemen, this is your guys' show tonight. I'll be in and out, commenting and asking questions. But as far as this show is concerned, I will give you guys the floor. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Dave. First, before we go anywhere with this Miller document, and you can find the Miller document on Beyond the Strange's Facebook page. I believe both Dave and Holographic have tweeted that out. If you want to go take a look at it, it's very long and complicated, and well, it's not too complicated, but it's very important that you can read along with us because we won't be able to go over it verbatim. We're going to be hitting a lot of the points on the actual document tonight and bringing up, what we happen to think about it. But it behooves you to actually go to the Facebook page and take a look at it yourself. Before I do anything else about talking with the Miller document and somewhat to a lesser degree the Wentworth document, I wanted to thank and give props and give credit to whom it's due. First is Linda M. Perry, who had this document placed on her website, Bigfoot Ballyhoo, back in 2012 or 2010, I believe. I'm not exactly sure the exact date. And of course, and especially Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles, of which Dave and I are avid fans, and we listen to every week and listen to it as much as we can. We crave it. And, bringing up what you were talking about, Dave, Steve growing, us becoming a family, they kind of have their family over there, too. They have a group of bloggers and a group of people who avidly follow Sasquatch Chronicles. And those people who dug this document up and from Linda Perry's website and took the time to vet it, is absolutely amazing. It reminds me a lot about, it reminds me of the Fadernauts, and it reminds me of the Beyonders. It really does. And those people that were especially helpful in that, I wanted to give props to as well, and that's Tracy, Joe, Chris, Mark, and Pam. I did not get last names, unfortunately, but I just wanted to at least say their first names to give props where props are due. And of course, another person that's also kind of involved with this is Mark in his show Crypto Reality. So now that we've gotten all that out of the way, Steve, do you want to go? Let's go ahead and start talking about the Miller document, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, it's okay with me, brother. Let's fire away.
All right. Okay. Well, first I'm going to read a little bit from the actual document itself. Now remember, Linda Perry is the person from Bigfoot Ballyhoo. Her website is where this original document was sent to, and this is actually from part of the this is from the person who sent the document to her website, and I'm going to read this verbatim. Dear Linda, I'm not clear as to the best way to handle a manuscript written by my grandmother's half-brother. He died in 2005. He had no children or relatives who live except for my grandmother. Apparently, he sent a box and left it. He sent this box and left it in the box without my knowledge or my mother's knowledge. It was in the attic of my grandmother since 2005. Amazing at the age of 92, my grandmother recently passed away, and my mother and I were going through his things, found this manuscript in that box. I do not know if it's authentic, but I wanted to share it with anyone who might know what to do with it. English is a second language, so I look to you, Linda, to be the nicest person on the internet now when it comes to Bigfoot. So I will send it to you. The written original manuscript is by hand, and it has been neglected, so a friend transcribed it to write to you. I do not know what to do with the original, so we have sealed it by and then it says Aura, which I guess means for the moment or now. Dave, what does Aura mean?
Well, in Spanish, ahora means now.
Okay.
I didn't actually take it as that's what it was. It looks kind of like more of like an organization perhaps, or maybe even some kind of program, but in Latin or in Spanish, ahora means now or today.
Okay. So basically, Steve, what we were talking about was we think Sophia, who is the name of the woman who actually sent this, was the granddaughter, uh, was the actual granddaughter of, or actually, she would be the granddaughter of her mother. So of her mother, where the document was in the attic. Her and her Sophia's mother found this in her grandmother's attic, who was the half sister to actually Miller or Dr. Miller. Okay, the following, and then from there you go to the actual document itself. She does write that the following was written by Dr. H.A. Miller, now deceased, in which he died in, I believe, 1995. He was born in on December 12th, 1909. And I believe he was actually, they said he was born in New England in December 12th of 1909. I was the first and only child of Christina and Arthur Miller. My mother died in childbirth, and I was subsequently raised by my father until remarried to a French woman when I was 12 or 13 years of age. Soon after their marriage, they bore a baby girl, which I guess was the grandmother whose where the document was in the attic. Soon after their marriage, they bore a baby girl. I finished my high school education while living with my father, stepmother, and half-sister. And it reads in here, there was an entire section here that I could not transcribe. Handwriting was illegible. Now this is Dr. Miller writing again. I remained in New York for my undergraduate work. I thoroughly enjoyed the outdoors, the ocean, and forestry. My undergraduate studies focused on forestry and land management. While my junior and senior year, I was employed by the federal government. I worked, and this is where we start going down the rabbit hole, folks, because he actually worked at a place called Lockwood Farm, and which was part of the Connecticut Agricultural Experimental Station, where he learned about hybridization in agriculture and enjoyed the hard outdoor work in the cornfields. And there we go, we have corn, and actually an agriculture experimental station. And we'll get back to that in just a minute. Steve and I can go way far down the rabbit hole when it comes to that.
It's going to get really interesting, folks.
Yeah, this is only the beginning.
The key word was experiment.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Experimental. And he happened to work with corn. So there you go. I'm sure everybody's heads are turning on at this point. I completed an additional year in forestry science and graduated in 1930 with a Bachelor in Arts from Yale University. Now, here we go. This guy actually graduated from Yale. All right. First of all, he worked for a place called Lockwood Farm in Connecticut, which was an agricultural experimental station. And then after working there for a few years, he ends up going back to school. And then he goes back to school to Harvard, of all places, and he becomes an orthopedic forensic surgeon. And after that, he did a little bit of a tour at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. Because of his previous work with the USDA, he was quickly employed by the federal government, USDA and Forestry Service. Now, we're going to take a little break from the actual document here. And Steve, this is where we start, basically our gears start turning. Where he's working for an agricultural station. He's working, and his primary focus at Yale was forestry. And now all of a sudden you've got, after, he's working for an experimental state agricultural station, basically focusing on corn, and this is in the 1930s. You got to wonder if this guy was tapped or actually asked to actually become this orthopedic forensic surgeon, because you wouldn't think that the actual government would need an orthopedic forensic surgeon to work for the Forestry Service. What do you think, Steve?
Well, at this point, Les, it's obvious to see in the document that he was being groomed for the work that he was getting ready, that the government was getting ready for him to do, and that's the study of Bigfoot. Him studying the dead bodies.
Yeah.
And I believe, doing the genetic testing that I believe that he was deeply involved in, which the document doesn't. It doesn't discuss. It discusses some of the genetic stuff, but he probably was heavily involved in the genetic sampling of the Bigfoot that were there on hand for him to study.
Right. Well, you see, this is what's funny, and I know we brought this up in one of our earlier conversations. You would think a person that works for the Forestry Service, the last thing he'd do is become an orthopedic forensic surgeon. You'd think that he would, more than likely, he'd become, a veterinarian, or he would become, an animal biologist, or animal anatomist. Excuse me, anatomist, not orthopedic forensic surgeon. Unless, and we did bring this up too, unless they were starting to find, the federal government was starting to find bodies of their actual workers in a very strange state. What were these people dying from that wasn't fire related, that wasn't accident related, that they needed an orthopedic forensic surgeon for? And you and I both agreed on this. We think he was the first in the Forestry Service.
Right. You're right, Les. He was, without a doubt, the first. And we discussed this the other day. Is where were these forestry people? Why did they need this? From him to to do the study.
Yeah.
To be a surgeon. Why did they need that? I don't. It doesn't make any sense unless he was going to be groomed to do, work outside the field there.
Right. Because he became a literal forensic expert and anatomist for the USDA and was called to, they say here, he says he was called to examine most major accidental deaths for the USDA and Forestry Service servicemen. But there you go. An orthopedic forensic surgeon basically does autopsies. He basically finds the cause of death for whether it's an accident or whether it's purposeful or whatever. And you wouldn't think, maybe there was a final call that they needed this because more, they were starting to fill up the state parks and the Forestry Service and the Department of Interior. But us being conspiracy-minded, we immediately think, what was going on in the Forestry Service that they actually needed a forensic surgeon. And then on top of this, something else we're going to bring up here is his early experiences in agricultural hybridization with Lockwood Farm for the USDA. He was called to examine, his early experiences in agricultural hybridization. He was assigned to scientific teams which investigated the physical nature of genetics. Now, in the 30s, early 40s, genetics was just kind of coming to the forefront. It was they hadn't discovered the double helix DNA, but it also says in his manuscript, the early experiments that he did determined that DNA is a component of the chromosomes where genetics were concerned and should be studied. And it actually led, along with efforts of several other scientists that we all know, led to the actual discovery of the double helix structure in the early 1950s. So this guy that was basically an orthopedic surgeon and did hybridization in Lockwood Farm with corn, actually helped, through his studies, he helped to discover the double helix of DNA.
In other words,
I mean, he would have been perfect for what they had. They had to have been finding these bodies. How long had the government had in possession, or did know? And they're, like you said, they've got these servicemen or women that are found dead, and they have no idea why they're dead.
Or they were just starting to discover bodies of Bigfoot, and they didn't have an actual. All they had were regular doctors before that to actually, they needed a real orthopedic forensic surgeon to actually, do real work on these possible bodies that they were finding.
And these bodies were not of human nature as we know. I'd like to make a comment, and I'd like to let our listeners know that this document is very, very long, and for time's sake, we're shortening and just giving you guys the highlights of the document. We're doing our best to go through it, but again, time doesn't really permit us to go through the document. It's very long, and it's very thorough, and we're going to do our best to go through it as best as possible. So I just wanted to point that out, but Les and Steve, they're doing an amazing job so far. Take it away, gentlemen.
Okay. And this is where I'm going to actually I'm going to actually read a little bit from the actual Miller document or Miller manuscript again, because it's kind of important. It's where he starts. This is where you finally figure out where and why this gentleman was tapped to go back to school, work in genetics, work as an orthopedic forensic surgeon. Okay, and I'm quoting this directly from the manuscript. It was at the same time, let's see, and this was after he discovered he helped discover the double helix structure of DNA in the early 1950s. It was at the same time that several of our team members were called to Bandera County, Texas, where the forestry scientist biologist assigned to Edward Plateau reported the dead bodies of a strange type of human. The first reports I received were speculating that they were feral humans from the local Comanche Indian tribes. The bodies were supposedly found in or around one of the massive caves within the Edwards Plateau area. When I arrived in Texas, I was surprised to find 3 bodies, one adult female and two female juveniles. I examined them as I typically would any human subject, but to my dismay, one of these creatures still seemed to be alive. I became quite distressed and upset with the local scientist, but they reassured me and they confirmed that all 3 were deceased. After further investigation, I found that these creatures were not at all human. They, in fact, had a remarkable rapid reparative process, hence the reason one of the creatures seemed dead, but in fact was regenerating to a degree. Unfortunately, the restorative abilities of the creature were not enough to keep it alive. Were not enough to keep it alive. They were massive in size and distinctly a new primate species unknown to science at the time. Now, for anybody who follows Bigfoot to any degree, kind of like what Steve and I do, you know that Bigfoot, there are several types. there are actually 4 types that they have reported, all ranging in different, different size, different shapes, et cetera, et cetera. And some of these can get as tall as 12 feet tall and 4 feet wide at the shoulder. Now, what amazed Steve and I, and Steve, if you want to jump in a minute, I'll let you. What he says in this document is fascinating because it actually fits with the name that he names these creatures later, which is Cebidae Telidae. Can you imagine being Dr. Miller, Steve, and showing up at this site? And he, because of his actual job, he was an orthopedic forensic surgeon. He was probably starting to do an autopsy on one of these creatures. And can you imagine him actually cutting into this creature, and it actually quite possibly, he got distressed because he was literally seeing this thing quite possibly knit back together as he was looking at it.
Well, this is the part of the document that really gets me going.
Please, go ahead.
You've got a creature, or creatures that you're getting ready to do an autopsy on, and one of them is still has some life in it, so to speak. But he talks about the reparative abilities of these animals. So now you have an animal that you're not worried about telling the public about this animal. You have an animal that you can use to make money, you can use for your benefit. There's something there that the government wants.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you really start seeing that what he's there for now, and with the genetics and with the figuring out how to retrieve that from these animals.
This is where you can really go down the rabbit hole. And Steve and I were talking about this yesterday with Dave. We did a test. If you guys want to listen to it, it's up on the YouTube page. That this is where it kind of comes to the forefront. You have a geneticist. Or not an actual geneticist, but someone who's familiar in genetics, who has worked for the government since his early 20s in hybridization and actual. Corn and everything else, but you have a person that can actually, now, as we all know, and we're all kind of conspiracy-minded when it comes to this, we already know that the government or the Department of the Interior, the Forestry Service, etc., considers everything, even though the land actually belongs to the people, they consider everything a resource. Can you imagine grooming this gentleman, Dr. Miller, for actually, to actually be able to pull this stuff, be able to work on the genetics, to actually be able to bring, to bring that research to the forefront for a myriad of things. And I guess we'll get back to that in just a minute. I think we're up against a break. And Dave, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, actually, we are going to go into our first break. You're listening to Beyond the Strange. We are talking with Les Johnson III and Steve Bunker about the Miller Bigfoot doc. And we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we seem to be having some technical difficulties. Please bear with us. We'll be right back. Hopefully, don't go away. Fuck. Sorry about that, people. We seem to be having some really big problems here, so please stay tuned. Let's just go ahead and get Steve back because we seem to be having some problems with our uh, audio.
Oh, sounds good to me, bro. Go ahead and give him a call back since we lost him.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
It's all right.
Apologize, everyone, for the inconvenience.
It's live radio.
Gotta love live radio.
All right, I'm back.
Hey, Steve, glad you're back. Sorry about that, brother. We seem to be having some technical difficulties. You gotta love live radio.
Live radio.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Anyways, we are back,
brother.
We're back with Steve Bunker and Leslie Johnson III. We're talking about the Miller Doc and Bigfoot document. And so far, we have learned that this not only ties into Bigfoot, but also other things that have been coming along throughout our history and what we're seeing today. Les, do you want to talk about some of the I mean, I know we stopped over in Texas with the 3 bodies, but do we want to bring up the fact that we're thinking that this could be some engineering going on with possible GMOs?
Yeah, actually, we were on the same frequency there, my brother, because I was just about to bring up the fact that just let's leave the doc for just a sec, and Dr. Miller, that is. Now you want to get back to Lockwood Farm, and Lockwood Farm. We actually brought that up in the very beginning of part of the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station. If you notice, we've talked about Dr. Miller. He was part of that for several years in between his Forestry Service Masters in Arts or Masters in Science and his deciding to go back to become a doctor, and that he was also involved in a little bit of because of what he did on Lockwood Farm. He was involved in some genetic research. And you get genetic research, you get corn, and what do we got? Someone who's dealing with DNA in it of itself. Were they in the very beginnings? Besides hybridization, maybe that was the very beginning of the GMO of the beginning of GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Steve?
More or less, if you look at the time frame that we're in right now, this is the 50s. We got to look at everything that is going on from a government standpoint. You've had Roswell wasn't that far back, you've got, I'm not saying that Bigfoot is any kind of extraterrestrial. I believe that they are most definitely from this planet. But you've got a lot of things going on in the government during this time frame. And they've got, they've all of a sudden have a creature that is, part of this ecosystem that we live in that is something special.
Right. That has a faster than any, that is a primate, that is kind of related to us. It's actually Cebidae telidae is a new world. He classifies this as a new world monkey. Okay.
Right.
And the
And they talk
Cebidae,
about how similar they are with the howler monkeys too, in the
the
document.
capuchin, the squirrel, and the as he said, the Central and South America arboreal howler monkey.
Oh.
So, you've got something that's, that's closely, not closely necessarily, but, on the same genetic, path as we are. And you've got, this guy who's already possibly working for genetically modified organisms. And it's a very easy step to go to, what is he doing with these creatures? He is actually, and where could it go from there? It could go to, it can go into the super soldier projects, my labs. It could go into, to making, better, stronger, faster, but not bionic, if you get my drift.
Right. Right. You're able to put a living organism. You have a living organism. You're able to take the good stuff out of that organism, and what can we do to take the good stuff out of this creature and adapt it to fit in the human body? And that's what he's here for. I truly believe this document states that's what he's is there for. That's part of his study.
Yeah. And what's funny, Steve, is I really, which is really important, I think, that, the main reason they put this document out in Sasquatch Chronicles is they wanted help. Because, I'd really like, they vetted the fact that this gentleman, Dr. Miller, did graduate from Yale, did graduate from Harvard, but then, and worked for the Forestry Service at Lockwood Farm, but then after that, everything is blacked out. There's got to be documentation somewhere that, I'd love to find out what he did during World War II.
Right, you're right, Les. He's been completely put in the black projects. You know that there is somewhere out there, though. We were talking about this last night. There has to be more information on this guy. There has to be.
Right. And that's another reason why we're doing this show, is because there's a bunch of very interested people out there on Sasquatch, these bloggers that are a lot like we are. They're searching for the truth, whatever that truth is. And any way we can get this out into the limelight, and we can get this, and we can get them any help they can, any help we can give them by spreading the word about this is 100% what we're all about. Because working together actually helps. Gets more accomplished than working separately. There's a lot more to this document that we haven't even gone over yet.
We haven't touched the surface.
Yeah. Anyway, the next part I wanted to bring up in the actual, he says he actually spent years studying these creatures, which, he names as Cebidae telidae. Now, I'd already mentioned that Cebidae is New World monkeys, and telidae is actually a species of lizard, specifically the type of lizard that actually is able to lose an appendage and regrow it, such as the glass-tail snakes and the how lizards will actually they'll literally let part of their body be lost And I'm not saying Bigfoot can lose an arm and regrow it, okay? But I'm thinking back then in the scientific-minded era that he was from, it made perfect sense to him to actually, be able to say, yes, they have a very rapid rate of healing. And for a creature that spends its time walking through thorns and walking, and basically can run a mile in a minute, you can only imagine, and I believe that that Mark and Wes Germer, Mark from Crypto Reality and Wes Germer brought up a very valid point. There are other things in nature that have remarkable healing abilities, just like the sharks can't get cancer. Alligators can't get staph. And there are other other animals in in the animal kingdom itself that have not special abilities, or like squirrels. The American squirrel is actually immune to rattlesnake poison. They become immune to it. So I think he was basically stating that their healing ability was a lot like the actual Telidae at that point.
Yes, I agree with you, Les.
Yeah, but he goes on to say they are definitely a primate origin, but with the traits seen in various species of primate, most of which were New World monkey. And I already went over the Cebidae Telidae found in San Antonio, Texas, are very much they howl just like a howler monkey, which is he also mentions is quite frightening to hear at night. And now this is when I'm going to go into the next part, and this is him talking about when he's in the 1960s. He brings up this Pacific Northwest creature found in let's see. I'm sorry, folks, I kind of lost my place.
62 and 63.
Yeah. I found these in. Let's see. Sorry about this, folks. I kind of lost my place here. This Pacific Northwest creature found in 1962-63. There was a, let's see, I think this was in Redding, California. Yeah, here we go.
Yes.
In late 1962-63, he was notified of a large human-like creature by the Redding Forest Service folks in California. Now, this brings up something really important here, and he doesn't say this in his manuscript, but he said, I arranged for transport of the body to my primary location in Colorado. It was reported to me that the body was found under a large tree that had been violently struck by lightning and blown to the ground, apparently killing this creature. Now, actually, in Redding, California, there was a flood and a really bad storm that happened. You can look it up and find it on the web in local newspaper for the local newspapers that have been downloaded. But Steve, did you notice what was said in there? That the Redding Forest Service, he arranged for transport of the body to his primary location in Colorado.
So
what does that mean?
Les? We've got how many other locations do they have?
Exactly. So this wasn't.
Where else are they studying, and where else are they trying to obtain these bodies? Of these animals.
Exactly. What do they do? Where else do they have these quote unquote stations? Because he had the body shipped, and not only that, he had it shipped. So it's not just a couple of people. Or a couple of scientists that are involved in this. You've got multiplicity of people that are actually involved in this. From several from his primary quote unquote research station in Colorado, from the people that people that reported it. You have people that transported it, and then you have an actual research lab. I mean, that's one thing I'd love to do. Is I'd love for somebody to be able to find out this research station that that was his in Colorado. What else was he doing there? You know what I mean?
apparently they were doing a lot of studying on these creatures. There's, and the document is only talking about 3, and then the one that we're speaking about now from Reading that was struck by lightning, I believe. That's 4 animals, right? So, but they had to have got their hands on quite a few more of these Bigfoot.
Yeah, and what I'm going to talk about next.
To justify all these other locations. Why, if they're not, capturing these, and that's another thing. Were they trying to capture these? Were they actively trying to capture, live specimens? Why so many of these different locations?
Yeah, and you know what, Steve? We listen to a lot of stories about these things, and these things, it seems, there's a lot more than just a couple hundred of them. It seems like they have. There's at least, because the number of sightings are actually increasing, and that people are actually willing to go and report it now. The stigma isn't nearly attached to it as it used to be. And we'll get into why this is important later, because it's becoming mainstream. And something later in the document that he talks about may be the reason. During his investigation, though, he found the animal to be very similar to those that he had studied in the Bandera County area of Texas, with some marked differences. He says the northern version of Sebedetelidae seemed to have the same New World monkey attributes he notated in the Texas animals. However, there were some new unique traits in the Pacific Northwest animal known as Sebedetelidae Neteros pacificus, or C. Neteros pacificus, including thumbs that are not entirely opposable, as we see in modern humans. In other words, ones that actually are able to grab around trees, arboreal. All right.
Yes, you've got creatures there that are climbing trees, or that are designed to spend some time in the canopy.
Whereas he's actually talking about the ones that are in Texas are more troglodyte, or he calls them troglodyte-like, and they spend more time on they can walk on all fours, and they spend time in caves. They have opposable thumbs versus ones that aren't flat against the side of the hand. They're not meant for tree climbing, in other words. And it also says here, entire hand was truly designed for grip, including proximal pads, making the hand somewhat hooked-like, having flattened nails, resulting in my theory that these northern creatures were developed, they had developed an evolutionary arboreal nature, while the Texas subfamily developed a troglocene nature. And troglocene means, I remember looking this up, it actually means cave dwelling.
There you go.
The Pacific Northwest creature, found in 62-63, also had scent glands on her forearms. This is more evidence that the C. Neteros pacificus is arboreal to some extent, leaving scent marks up and down the tree while climbing. Not only was this creature smashed by the large tree, but she was also badly burned with areas of lightning points. This is how she died, basically. He notated in his medical examination the report of the body that it seemed as though the lightning struck the animal, passing through her body and into the tree, subsequently weakening the tree and causing it to fall on the ground and on top of the actual animal. Let's see. It also says that C. Neteros pacificus also had additional medial padding on the feet, which is very similar to basically, to hug, basically big pads on the feet to help hug a tree. And also, a lot of Bigfooters seem to think that the reason they have that on there is to keep their feet warm in the colder climes up north as well. Now, this is kind of important. Steve, and we'll talk about this after I talk about this. Both the Cenoterus pacificus and the C. texicanus have oversized lower jaws, including massive steromastoid musculature. This must have been due to their rugged diet, moreover, their need to crush bones. Now, everybody is going to really kind of flip out when you hear this part, because we've all heard of double... I'm just going to read it, and then you guys can let your lower jaw drop. Their lower dentum at first looked as a second row of molars. But after years of research and examining the dead bodies of these animals, I have found that the lower molars are simply oversized or fused, resulting in massive bone-crushing tools. Dave, when you hear double row of teeth, what do you think?
You start getting into the giants.
Yep.
Ding, ding. There you go. And it took this guy...
I believe you start talking, does people bring in the Nephilim, then?
It's possible, well, it could be very, a lot of stuff is based off myth. And, what if these things, several thousand years ago were a little bit more civil? Native Americans have often talked about giants with double rows of teeth, and that they would eat human beings, and they'd steal their infants, they'd steal their, they even talk about Bigfoots now, stealing infants, stealing women and older people. There's a certain time of, they're very careful not to let their elderly, their infants and their women go out after a certain point.
Hmm.
When it gets dark and they know these things are in the area, it's that time of year, they don't let people go out past a certain point in time. They're not out of the house. You stay in. Even today. So there's, that I just thought that was a very interesting link. The double rows of teeth, and scientists have been finding, they've said for past 100, 200 years, scientists or archaeologists have been finding skulls, giant skulls with double rows of teeth. So
right. And most primates don't have the. I would have to say all primates so far that have been researched don't have double rows of teeth.
No, they generally don't. They usually have massive molars or grinding molars to mash vegetation. But this gentleman, Dr. Miller, is actually saying that these are used to crush bone of their prey. To basically,
he even calls them tools, bone crushing tools.
That's right. Basically, to get to the marrow, which is the fattiest part of, which has a lot of nourishment and fat.
Mm-hmm.
Due to their jaw size and bone-crushing dentum, it is also clear that all subfamily of this creature are omnivorous, predaceous, and opportunistic. We did find that the female killed during the Columbus Day storm was pregnant with monozygotic embryos, and this is important, and we'll bring this up in just a second. I've investigated throughout my career, and that have been pregnant have been monozygotic embryos, this again incorporating additional evidence of a new world monkey relationship. Now, monozygotic means that a monozygotic embryo or twins is basically one embryo. They start out with one embryo. It turns into two. So you get identical twins. And that this gentleman, who's basically a doctor in orthopedic forensics, knows enough about DNA and knows enough about human biology, or even the Sasquatch or Bigfoot biology, that he knows that these things, over the years, he's figured out that all these bodies, they always have twins. This guy knows his stuff. he
This guy is super sharp list. This guy didn't get to where he was at by being in the back of the class.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. It's and it's very interesting because even it seems like the first set of, and this goes back to the first set of bodies he said he ever looked at. There was a female and two sub-adult females, twins.
Yeah, and we got to look at as well. Look at the time frame now that he's had to look at to study these bodies. He's been studying these bodies now for what, 12, 15 years?
Well, let's see. He basically said he started. He got his when did he? Let's see. He got his first set of bodies in let's see, the early 1950s, and this was in 1962-63 during the Columbus Day storm. I'm very interested to know what he left out, because this is supposedly, it almost seems like it's a diary or a journal, and he's kind of like taking this out, and he wants to be, because it kind of seems like he's taken out of a diary and put this into a manuscript form, because, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but actually we're getting ready to have our next break. That is if we can get the music going here. And we'll talk about, and we'll actually talk about how he, I think he wants to be remembered. I really think he wants to be remembered, because I don't think he's going to quite get what he wants, because I think he starts to figure out the way the government is, and later on in the thing he says they tell him 20 years, just like they tell the UFO folks who work for him, 20, 30 years, it'll be all disclosed. So if you want to take it from here, Dave?
I'm actually trying to. I'm not sure what's going on still, but I mean, we could try going to a break. I mean, I'm just not sure how well the music's going to come through, or if it's even coming through.
Unfortunately, I'm not hearing it right now, and let's actually we can stick on.
Well, we don't have to. I mean, do we have to take a break?
No.
You know what? Actually, I was just going to say, because there's so much to cover, I don't even think we need a break. So for everyone that's listening there, if you guys want to go back, yeah, anybody out there who's listening, I mean, for the audience, if you guys want to go and do what you got to do and come back, please do. But we're just going to go ahead and just cover this this information. So
yeah, because we still got a lot to go.
We got a lot to go. Plus, we also want to bring up the fact that there's a second document that that was talked about. It's called the Wentworth document, and it's actually kind of opposing to what Dr. Miller was saying. That's a very interesting document as well. But we'll continue to work. Continue going through the Dr. Miller document, and then we'll go into the Wentworth later. And then we'll also have Q&A. We have some listeners that would love to call in, and actually we have a friend of the show and of Fate or Not family that has had a Bigfoot sighting, and hopefully we'll hear from him a little bit later in the show. But go ahead, Les. Let's go ahead and continue to talk about the Miller document, and then we can get into the Wentworth document later.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Once again, I want to take this time because we're normally going to have a break here. I wanted to bring up the fact that we wouldn't be even talking about this document if it wasn't for the bloggers at SasquatchChronicles.com. So I want to thank Wes Germer, who, I'm a big fan of his, and I think Steve is too. I mean, we spend a lot of time on his page, on his podcast, and everything else. So thank you, Wes. And I wanted to thank, of course, Linda M. Perry at Bigfoot Ballyhoo. If it wasn't for her allowing this document to be posted on her website in 2010, 2012, we wouldn't have it right now. And then, of course, for the actual bloggers on SasquatchChronicles.com, Tracy, Joe, Chris, Mark, and Pam. And one more shout out for Mark at Crypto Reality. You can find him. I think he's got a YouTube channel as well. So if you want to check him out. And if any of you are interested in actually helping out, you can join the forums or the blogs on SasquatchChronicles.com, and they'll be happy for any help whatsoever. This is kind of Stephen, mine, and Dave's way, and Holographic. It's our way to try to kind of help, help some fellow truth seekers out, if you get my meaning.
And Bigfooters.
Yeah, but truthfully, it's all about truth. We're trying to get to the truth, whether it be for UFOs, paranormal, Bigfoot. There is a huge amount of that the government does know that they don't tell us, and they keep us in the dark, and it's just wrong, and it really makes me angry, and I know it makes Steve angry.
It's got to make Steve angry.
But like we were discussing last night, if I truly believe that if we finally can prove the existence of Bigfoot, that it is going to open up the entire box for disclosure across the board. That it's going to help every bit of it, because you're going to have people that are so close-minded that don't believe in Bigfoot, and all of a sudden they realize, gosh, there is a creature like that that we've been living with for thousands of years, and so why can't there be extraterrestrials that's coming to visit this planet? It's because I think once you crack the lid on that box, the information is going to come pouring out of it. There's no way to seal it back.
I agree.
I totally agree. Yep, I totally agree as well.
Pandora's box. It will
And
be
who knows?
opened.
Who knows how long the government has known, about all of this that we're talking about tonight, and especially the Sebede Telidae, or whatever you want to call it, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. I think it's all the same. I believe that these creatures that Dr. Miller is talking about in this document is Bigfoot. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. And then
Dave, where are these creatures at today? It's not like they threw these creatures away. These things are in these chambers somewhere, and with all likelihood, they're still probably being studied today with just new groups of scientists.
Mm-hmm.
And different technologies that's come about. So who knows what else that they've been able to figure out since the 50s and the 60s when Dr. Miller had this today. I'm sure the sky's the limit for him.
Yep, absolutely. And do one of you guys want to talk about, because we did talk about this, about David Pilates and the missing 411, the abductions that were done in Yosemite. I wasn't sure if you guys were going to bring that up or not.
Yeah, actually I'm going to bring that up, but I wanted to read a little bit more of this document first to get there.
Sure.
Please be
Absolutely.
sure to remind me just in case we go off on a tangent.
No problem.
I'm going to start from here. Yeah, you know us, brother. Okay. Basically, the next part of the document he talks about, due to my investigations of the 1950s bodies in Texas and the 1960s Pacific Northwest Columbus Day storm body, I submitted to the Department of Agriculture that this is a new Platyrrhini, Platyrrhini species. That's a new family under the Pavorder. Oh boy, here we go. And that a new family under Parvorder should be created. Fellow scientists of mine, and this is where the Wentworth document comes in and kind of corroborates a little bit some of Dr. Miller's findings and the fact that they're negative. Fellow scientists of mine disagreed given the fact that the creatures we examined in both cases were both obviously bipedal and catarrhini in terms of their nostrils facing downward. In other words, old world monkeys. And the difference between an old world and a new world monkey, I'm sure you all know. New world, North, South America. Old world, Africa, Asia, India, Europe, etc. However, the juveniles we have examined are much more plentahirhini in terms of nostril breadth and position. He says he won the debate in the end due to the fact that no evidence thus far demonstrates that these creatures crossed over from the old world, but are simply new world monkeys adapting to their various staged areas within North and South America. Now, what I said there was important. Dr. Miller says he proved in this debate with these other scientists is that Bigfoot is a New World monkey. Mm-hmm. And Steve, why don't you go on from there? What does that mean?
Well, it means that these animals did not cross the land bridge, that this animal is native to North and South America. That they
actually
here, they have grown here. They've adapted to the light, to the surroundings, and that's what they are.
Actually, you're right, but you're also kind of they did go over the land bridge, but guess what? They went the opposite way. They started here in North America, and the ones that are in Russia and China and India and et cetera, are from North America, not the other way around.
Right. So those animals have had to adapt to their environments wherever they're at, in Asia or Africa or wherever they may be found. They've adapted and changed to suit their environment wherever they're at. But that shows you also how these creatures have adapted to their surroundings, because there's so many different species of these creatures. They're everywhere. They're everywhere across the world.
That's right. And Steve, this is a perfect time if you want to. I don't know if you want to or not, but your father actually saw Bigfoot, saw rock apes, while he was in Vietnam. Do you want to tell that story real quick?
Yeah, it was just my father was in Vietnam in the Marine Special Forces, and he was in recon, and he spent quite a bit of time in Laos and Cambodia, even though they weren't supposed to technically be in Laos and Cambodia, but they did spend quite a bit of time there, and they just happened to see what they actually call a rock ape. And the reason that they call them rock apes is because they would throw rocks and clods of dirt at them, and they but these animals did walk on two legs, but they were not gigantic 10 and 12 foot tall animals. These were, according to my father, were 5 foot, 5.5 foot, 6 foot tall creatures that did walk on 2 feet though, and they throw rocks at them, and and that's how they named them. They got the name rock apes, is because they did throw quite a bit of debris at the Marines and other soldiers in the area.
Yeah, and that, once again, that's a perfect example of how this New World species has actually adapted to wherever it needs to. It's because they live in a jungle type environment. They basically adapted to just like the skunk ape that they have in Florida, Louisiana, and Georgia. they've grown a little bit smaller, and to move around in the forest or jungle type environment that they live in.
Yeah, you got the heat in the jungles, so they just don't need the size. The bigger animals are for them colder environments. That's seen all across the globe. Is if you're in a colder environment, normally the bigger the animals are to hold that heat.
That's right.
But also, if you look at this, you could have some correlation to with the rock apes, with them throwing objects. You look at maybe the thumb placement on the hand. Do you see more of these creatures that that have the thumb, more like us? Are they more adept at throwing objects opposed to the ones that say in Northern California that are more adept to climbing trees and spending some time in the canopy? Do they throw objects quite as much as, say, the more southern Bigfoot from Texas and Florida?
I think they do, believe it or not. I don't think it stops them because they have 5 digits. I think because I've heard just as many people, talking about. But you know what? I hear more in the Pacific Northwest. I hear more about them throwing tree limbs than I do rocks. You know what I mean?
Right.
Throwing logs, throwing pieces of debris, or if they do throw rocks, they tend to throw boulders, it seems, or half-size boulders at people.
I did hear a story about that. I can't remember where I heard it from, but that the campers that were out there, they weren't even. I don't even think they were looking for Bigfoot, but all of a sudden stuff was just flying towards their campsite. Like tree trunks and shit. Oh, excuse me. I mean stuff. Man, I really got a bad mouth tonight. I'm sorry, people.
That's all right. Well, and then moving on from there, and we want to get to the part where we want to talk about kind of like Paulides a little bit. It says, however, let's see. It talked about how they basically cross over from from North and South America to the Old World. He talks next about how he retired.
Are we going to take a break, Wes?
Yeah, are we going to take a break here, Dave?
I'm sorry, guys. I just wanted to see if that was going to work, but you know what? Why don't we take a quick break and then we'll reconvene and we'll talk about Pilates.
Oh, cool. Absolutely.
So thank you very much, everyone, for sitting tight there and hanging out with the audio fixing. So we'll be right back. This is Beyond the Strange. We're talking with Les Johnson III and Steve Bunkum. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Hey, are you strange? How strange are you? You should listen to Beyond the Strange, hosted by Dave Cruz, Sunday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Break out, all you Fadernauts and other truth seekers. Look behind the curtain of perceived reality to the strangeness beyond. Keep up with us on Twitter at #BeStrange.
And we are back. This is Beyond the Strange. We are talking about the Bigfoot Miller document. We are here speaking with Leslie Johnson III and Steve Bunker. And this has been a fascinating topic, gentlemen. I want to thank you again for coming on to the show and presenting it amid all the technical difficulties that we've been having tonight. But I really appreciate it, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. I just wanted to let you guys know that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
So we were talking about David Pilates and the 411, missing 411. Do you want to? Who wants to talk about that? Les or?
Well, what I'll do first is I'll read what makes it very interesting and why Pilates might be a factor in this. He talks about retiring, and I'll go back. I'm going to go forward a little bit in the document for those of you who don't have it available or do and you want to follow. He says he has spent a great deal of his career as an expert for the federal government concerning Sebede Telidae and throughout the world. There you go, including the bodies recovered in the 1980s due to Mount St. Helens eruption. We made many recommendations to protect the species, but the DOI has constant concern regarding the impact of such a decision due to the vast number of areas this species inhabits. So there you go, right there. That proves they're not just a drop in the water. They're in a lot of places. Such a decision would have potential negative impacts on the natural resource industry. The United States Forestry Service is now working toward creating a protected wildlife refuges for Sebede Telidae. And it says here there's an entire section here that I cannot transcribe. Handwriting was illegible. Otherwise, the team focused on molecular genetics. The United States Forestry Service and the Department of Interior is recognizing now that the natural resource industry is not the economic center it once was. Now, this is important because basically what they're stating is the reason why they've kept it quiet and they didn't want this out is because, of course, Department of Interior, what do they think about? They think about resources. They think about, the lumber industry. They think about fishing, hunting, land, water, land. Basically what they're saying is they don't want this out in the public because it's going to hurt the bottom. It's going to hurt the bottom line. All right. Now from here, it says, later on, the Forestry Service and Department of Interior is recognizing that the natural resource industry is not the economic center it once was. So a final decision has been made to finalize the Class 1 identification of the species. There is a 20-year plan to incorporate all wildlife protection areas throughout many areas of the United States to ensure federal land protection for Sebede Telidae, starting with California, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, Utah, and Washington. I was upset by this decision, and this is Dr. Miller again, by this decision because the first location the species was identified scientifically was Texas. I petitioned, and as a result, the Government Canyon State Natural Area will be protected, open to the public, and expanded in Bexar County, Texas. Now, the bloggers on Sasquatch Chronicles actually vetted that area was actually created as a wildlife refuge and has actually been expanded according to what it says here.
I want to ask a question, and Steve, you can chime in on this also. Is this almost an admittance on the government's part that they're setting aside land for these creatures that nobody knows about?
Yeah. What they're saying is, and once again, they're saying to this scientist, oh no, please wait, we have a 20-year plan in place, or setting aside these natural areas, and that once we're done with this 20-year plan, you know, and later on it does say that they will bring out this this natural. They will, you know, they will tell that this species is protected and bring it out in the mainstream. But that's where we think Paulides comes in. They may have been in the. If you look, a lot of these people vetted the fact that these places in all these states were, you know, had places created as wildlife sanctuaries or refuges, and all of a sudden Paulides comes around in 2012, and boom, it's like everything came to a screeching halt, because now, if they come out with this species, what does that do? You know, lawsuits. You know, all these missing people that are in all these wildlife sanctuaries that they talk about in this document. What happens then? If they actually admit, boom, you know, they're going to be liable for all this.
Absolutely. Steve, would you like to comment on that?
Well, first, it's the government. I don't think that we'll ever see the government unless one, you know, jumps out in front of a tractor and trailer, you know, and gets hit, and somehow or another it gets on, you know, CNN. Will the government ever admit that these creatures exist? But if they do start to slowly trickle this out, it means one thing also, that they've probably got all the information from these animals that they can get. You know, they've done sucked the species dry, basically, as far as information and technologies that they can retrieve, you know, from these creatures.
But you know what? Once they
look at the lawsuits, like Les said, you're going to have a tremendous amount of lawsuits. But then again, you're going to have these, you know, the government. They're just going to say, you know, they're not liable for, you know, it's no different than a bear kill or a cougar kill. But then, you know, you have other people saying, well, yes, but you knew that these creatures, you know, were very dangerous, and you didn't tell the public to beware. You know, so it's a touchy situation for the government.
And actually, this is very interesting. This leads up right to near the end of the document. I'm still living in Colorado, and I have attempted to journal my experience with the discovery of Cebidae, and it says, it will protect it. You know, this species is amazing, powerful, and deadly if angered. Like any animal, it will protect itself, its food source, and its young at all cost. And basically, it's saying deer. It uses the scientific name, which is Artiodactyla, which is basically hooved animals like deer, moose, antelope, are its primary food source. It is imperative that the federal government continue to designate natural areas, otherwise a scarce food resource available to Cebidae will result in more opportunistic feeding behavior and closer interaction between humans and Cebidae. Bigfoot. These creatures and human beings simply do not coexist. That's the last thing he says in his journal.
I think that about sums it up. Yep.
Yes, and that it shows, you know, also all the people that's had bad experiences with these animals, with Bigfoot, and that boils back to, you know, to Pilates. You know, how many creatures have killed humans, maybe in defense of a young one or a food supply, or or just using the humans as a food source.
Mm-hmm.
Opportunistic
Because
feeding
these
behavior.
animals, right, they're opportunistic, and they're very, these animals are, it's hard to get people to understand the way that these animals move, and the size that they are, and the strength that they have, and the agility that they have for their size. That's just another reason why our government has probably kept this under wraps for so long, is that these creatures move unlike anything that we're used to seeing move.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically, Steve, that was a perfect point, because a lot of people that see these things say it's like they're moving so fast they can barely keep up, but it's like they're moving fast but in slow motion. We have no idea the power of these things. They say it's very easy for these things in certain encounters that Steve and I have listened to on Sasquatch Chronicles. They do say they have had to have, I can neither confirm or deny, this. There are special forces who have had to go out and cull certain creatures, and they literally, they have to make sure that they're on point, they're on target, and all their everything they bring with them works, because these things can literally rip your arm off at the socket without blinking an eyelash, or pop your head off like you used to go out in the field and pick up a dandelion and go just pop. They can do that to a human being so easily because they have 15 times our strength. They're built differently than we are, and I think it truly scares the American government what these creatures can do, and quite possibly the backlash that they would get especially from all the people that have had these, it have been called crazy, or no, you just saw a bear, for the past 50, 60 years.
Well, that's one thing we're going to get into if we do find out that these things do exist. Well, we know that they exist, but if the government finally comes out and says that they exist, we don't play well with other animals that threaten our way of life, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And if something is taking our children, or ruining our camping excursion for the weekend, we're going to start doing things that are not good to that animal. And
Exactly.
there'll be a lot of people that will probably join together and want to eliminate the animal. Period. That if they're that much of a danger to us, kill them. You're going to have a lot of people say that.
Well, there's people out there already that are. I mean, I've just now started seeing more people getting together. I'm seeing it on social media how they want to get together and they want to hunt. They want to hunt Bigfoot. They don't want to just find Bigfoot and catch him and put him in a cage and put him out there for people to see. No, they want to go and they want to basically hunt Bigfoot down like game.
Yeah.
I think that's a real stupid idea because, for one, the document clearly states, how intelligent these animals are, and how big a brain they have. They're not dumb animals, they're not like your basic domestic pet. So what I say to those guys, hey, more power to you, but I'm pretty sure you're going to be more in trouble than they're going to be. That's just my
Unless,
I'm
opinion.
pretty sure that the government is actively, hunting these animals, and killing them, not just for the means to catch them and to do more research with them. I think that they're actually hunting them to eliminate them from specific areas that they're in. And I don't know, did we go over in the document list the point that these creatures do not survive in captivity?
Oh, that's right.
no, we have not gotten. We didn't go back to that because we kind of skipped towards the end. We were trying to go over the
I think we
Paulides thing.
skip that, but that's mentioned in the document that they were very upset with the scientists that did have this creature, that it did die in captivity after only a few short days.
Yeah.
It
Actually, it
basically
says
become,
it says
ahead,
in the
that's correct.
document, Steve. It says basically
I was
all
trying
of
to
my
find it.
experience with this primate has been post-mortem, save a few unique experiences in the wild. To my knowledge, a live specimen has never been captured except for once in a northern research station in California. However, the animal did not survive in captivity and died several days later.
Right.
And it
It
says,
does.
Because we're not going to be able to put these animals in a zoo for everybody to look at.
Yep.
But
Ain't gonna
has the
happen.
government found a way to beat that? If if they've had these animals and they've studied them now for 50 years now, 70, I'm going on almost 70 years. Have they found a way to keep them in captivity without them passing on?
actually, he says
Because I mean,
here,
I'm sure they were trying to figure that out, because it's a lot better to study an animal, a live specimen, than a dead specimen.
right.
One of the I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut in there, but I wanted to point out one of the bullet points. I don't know if we went over it. Is where it says folks at the Northern Research Station were very devastated and embarrassed so that the live specimen died so quickly after being in captivity. So no, they are not magical. They are highly intelligent primates, like we said. So it's clear in this document and to Dr. Miller that these creatures don't stay in captivity, and as a matter of fact, it's more of a defense mechanism that when they're caught, they pretty much they're not gonna stick around very long.
And adding to that, someone asked, Steve, I believe you had mentioned, have they figured out till now? Have they figured out yet how to keep these things, in captivity or in a zoo? And no, up until 1985, actually, no. Having one die in captivity is a very difficult to witness due to the human nature and feeling about the species. In reality, captivity will never be realistic for Cebidae because of their size and complex brains. Similar to captive white sharks, the species cannot thrive in captivity and quickly die as a protective mechanism. And I believe we looked up earlier, and so did Wes and Mark when they did their show on this very same subject. Back in 1985, a California aquarium attempted to capture a great white shark, and it kept beating its head against the side of the tank, and they eventually either had to let it go or it died. I'm pretty sure they let it go.
Yeah, they let it go. Yes, it was let go.
Yeah. So no, basically, he died in 95. So there you go. I mean, they're basically saying all the way up until 95 or whenever he wrote this, probably in the early 90s, that no, they had no way of keeping these animals. And I doubt they've figured out a way so far. If they haven't been able to figure it out up until then, I doubt they have figured out a way till now.
Gentlemen, I just wanted to let's take another quick little break, and when we come back, Let's get into the Wentworth document and the opposition that was, going against Dr. Miller, unfortunately. But that's the kind of thing that happens when you bring out the truth. We are Beyond the Strange. I am Dave Cruz, your host, and we are talking about the Bigfoot Miller document with Leslie Johnson III and Steve Bunker. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Are you bored with your Sunday nights? Looking for something different? A show that's for you, the listener? Tune in Sunday evenings, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, to Beyond the Strange.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Beyond the Strange. We are live, and we are speaking with Leslie Johnson III and Steve Bunker. They're good enough to be here tonight to talk about the Bigfoot Miller document. Thanks again, gentlemen. It's been a very fascinating evening and just amazing. All the things that are coming out of this document, it's I have not heard of it or read about it anywhere else. This is an amazing find, and to the credit of the people that you guys found the source, it's just been really, really, really awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the Wentworth document. Apparently, there was some opposition to Dr. Miller. His colleagues didn't seem to believe him too much, or they were trying to, debunk him, if you will.
Yeah. Actually, the Wentworth document was actually pulled up by, Tracy, Joe, Mark, Chris, and Pam as a possible. Of course, they realized it would be 100% impossible to prove this document legit, even if the guy was still alive and we had a chance to talk to him. Because the authors passed away in '95, but they were able to dig this up, and it's called the Wentworth document, and I'll read, if you guys, it's not nearly as long as the Miller document is in and of itself, so I can read a little bit of it if you'd like me to.
Yeah, get us a little bit of it there, Les.
Okay. Journaling notes in 1960. Notes regarding the New World ape. evolution from monkey to apes to the bipedal higher order. What connection in North America to such an anomaly, Northarctis venticulus? Must contact her up. Examination at Yale Natural History. Miss Leakey excuse me. Miss Leakey discovery seemingly indicates a creature that may be bipedal. In contacting Mary, I found her very open to similar evolutionary history in the Americas. Hopefully, she will visit with us. Hopefully, she will visit with us, though she very much dislikes Dr. Miller. So actually, Miss Leakey is probably Miss Leakey Wentworth from the Wentworth document. I found her very open to such. I found her very open to such similar evolutionary history in the Americas. Hopefully, she will visit with us, though she very much dislikes Dr. Miller. She has requested to examine the skeletal anatomy, basically meaning she wants to look at one of the Bigfoot specimens. This meeting has been too difficult to sally forth and may never happen. Unfortunately, questions and concerns. Basically, and it's really funny, she says sally forth, which, you know, has, to me, I don't know about you, Dave and Steve, but, you know, using that kind of language, is, you know, it makes me think this is back in the 50s or 40s.
Yes, definitely. That's some old school terminology.
Excuse me, I did.
You're right. It is what it is. Look, I believe the document to be true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you all not believe that this document is authentic?
Well, it's just like when we're listening to the podcast, you know, Wes and Mark made a good point about, in the beginning, when they examine this document, the credibility that you can hear in everything that Dr. Miller has done and gone through, and again, this is just one document. It's basically, you know, a journal entry, a very long journal entry, but who knows what kind of documentation hasn't been found yet, you know, and brought to the public about not only about this species, but what else did the government have Dr. Miller doing? You know, I still can't, you know, wrap my mind around the different departments in the government, and there are lots of different departments, and that's an understatement, that were involved in this. You know, what department again was it that was with trying to save face as far as the public goes?
It was either the Forest
Department of Interior,
Department of the Interior, DOI.
Right, exactly. I mean, when do they get involved in this kind of thing?
Well, Department of Interior is basically in charge of every, of every natural resource that's in the Americas, even though it's supposed to be owned by the American public or the American taxpayer. They're in a pretty autonomous group. They'll do whatever they freaking feel like to whatever the resources they need to.
They have the total say.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like that they were doing this also to, you know, there was an economic hardship because of this with the loggers, and I mean, I know we covered that a little bit, but you know, the impact that the government is trying to cover up, you know, some of this stuff. Yeah, it's it just baffles me.
Yeah. If you'd like, I can read. There's a few more paragraphs in this Wentworth document that.
I'm sorry, I'm actually the one that went off topic there. Go ahead, please, Les. Finish the topic. The document.
No problem. After the questions and concerns part, she puts the adaptation to open habitats in the American landscape, seemingly American transition approximately 3 million years ago from monkey to ape. And ape is in bold letters, and onto a higher order of bipedal apes similar to Zyganthropus Zojanthropus boisei, which is Boisei. Climate changes in the Americas 3 million years ago forced the arboreal nature of New World monkeys to a terrestrial habitat. Did this event result in the new ape evolutionary pattern in the Americas? The species utilize tools, stones, for food gathering and processing, meat eaters as well as plant and fruits, migratory in nature. She goes on to say, to support Dr. Miller theorems, we examine Rusconi's work. Homunculus was discovered in the New World with traits that demonstrate parallel evolution, potentially due to a change in olfactory usage, olfactory meaning nose, and increased binocular reliance. Binocular meaning eyes and nose. Dr. Miller uses this example as a similar evolutionary pattern in the New World to those primates in the Old World. However, my question is to whether the changes in homunculus is due to transition from nocturnal living. In other words, and that's a good point, because a lot of people seem to think that Sasquatch or Bigfoot are nocturnal in nature. Isn't that right, Steve?
It seems that way. I mean, but apparently with the research, you know, I mean, are they? I mean, who knows? Until we're able to put our hands on a specimen, you know, and get all the information out. I don't know.
Yeah, and in 1972. Go ahead, Steve.
I'd like to get my hands on one, wouldn't you, Les?
Oh, yeah, just a little bit. I'd like to get my hands on, dude. I'd like to get my hands on a piece of one. All right. I don't necessarily want to kill one. I don't know if it would be right, because I think they're not quite human from what we do see. And a lot of the stories people say, but they have their own intelligence, because they're carnivorous, because they're omnivores. They are predatory, and they do have their own. They're not human intelligent, but they're smart. They're very smart, and they're a lot smarter than we are in the wildcraft. We think we go out in the woods with a gun, and we are master of all. I mean, you could go out in the woods with a gun with one of these creatures, and you shoot it you could shoot it 10 times, and it'll laugh all its way to pulling your head off. That's how strong these
You're
things
right. You know, and in the document, you know, the document talks about that he believes, Dr. Miller believes, that these creatures were definitely, you know, ape-like. You know, in the facial part of the animal. But then, you know, there's a lot of reports out there, Les, that talk about how human-looking some of these creatures are that people report seeing. You know, so are some of the animals, I mean, how many different species are there? Are there some of them that are more nocturnal than others? You know,
Yeah, well, actually,
who knows? I mean,
Dr. Miller gives us,
know?
yeah, Dr. Miller gives us 6 primary species. Okay, and I'll read them right now, because we hadn't gotten to that yet. It's Cebidae, Telidae, Arctos, which is you can commonly, Arctos is generally named for bear, but we think that is in place of the Yeti, or the northern version. There's Cebidae, Telidae, Pteros pacificus, which we believe is the Pacific area tropical region of Bigfoot. There's Cebidae, Telidae, Somphos. Somphos, I looked up, and that's actually quite possibly the skunk ape, the one in Florida, or swampy type areas. Cebidae, Telidae.
Any of them? Do you think that any of them is more like the Neanderthal type creature, Les, in the descriptions?
You know, the Cebidae, Telidae americanus, I believe quite possibly might be that. Because there have been, there are people who say that there are 3 or 4 different types of Bigfoot. And the type 3 Bigfoot, I believe, is the one that looks exactly like a Neanderthal. Or could possibly...
They wonder if there's any mention of basically the dogman type species.
I don't think he even mentioned the Dogman in this,
No,
because that's another.
As far as coming straight out with it, but you don't, unless we basically had a picture of each species besides the given name.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? And wonder if they did come across the dogman species.
It's possible, because they also have Texacanus and Amazonia. That's 6 species that this guy has seen. 6. 6 species.
Man, that's unbelievable. What do you think was going through Dr. Miller's brain when he first saw the first one?
What I think he saw, because I believe they were badly burned.
He said that they thought they were feral humans at first.
He probably thought they were Neanderthal.
Yeah.
And who says that that the ones that we that the Neanderthal that people have seen aren't Bigfoot that have actually just lost their hair, through some type of dermatitis or something?
That's a possibility. Hey, guys, I wanted to just quickly point out, we do have our listeners, our Beyonders out there.
Mm-hmm.
Goddess Central wanted to point out they cannot stay in captivity because they have to move a lot to keep their core temperature closed in. They can't. That's a pretty good point there, Goddess. And also, Mr. Gene Gunny Vital, thank you, Gunny, for chiming in also. He wants to know, so where is the whistleblower or photographic proof? Documentation from the U.S. government. And, that's a good question.
Where is the actual whistleblower? Sophia?
That is a great question.
Yeah. Actually, Wes, right now...
You get...
go ahead, sorry, gentlemen. Let's go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
I mean, like I said, that's a great question. You get all these other whistleblowers, or they think they're whistleblowers anyway. They try to come forward, and I think me and Les, we were speaking about that the other night over the definition of a whistleblower. And Les, could you refresh my memory on that, please?
Yeah, I believe when we were talking, we were saying a whistleblower is generally someone like Snowden. Snowden who comes out, basically turns in the American government for what it's doing, but he also has the evidence to prove it.
Right.
Whereas some people may say they've got whistleblowers, but they don't have the evidence to prove anything that they're saying. That's just hearsay.
And there's a lot of them out there.
Right. So if we do have a whistleblower, back to the question, where is the evidence? There has to be a whistleblower. I mean, you've got all these whistleblowers that come forward in the UFO part of it with, extraterrestrials and, spacecraft and all that on that side of it. But yet we haven't seen that on the Bigfoot side of it.
That's right.
I think there's actually more evidence for Bigfoot than there actually is UFOs, believe it or not. And I hate to say that. It's, at least we have footprints, we have possible DNA, we have possible hair samples, et cetera, for Bigfoot. It's more, documentary evidence, I guess, for UFOs, but documentary evidence can be faked very easily, and so can photos.
Why can't we have a autopsy video like we had with the Extraterrestrial.
Oh, the
Yeah.
famous alien autopsy on Fox.
Yeah, why can't we have that? Wouldn't that be something?
Snow job. Excuse
Hey, who's to say that, we may never, not see that, you never know. We might see that in the future. For those beyonders that are out there listening, we are going to go over probably about 15 more minutes, just to see if we can get some more, people to have a Q&A. I know one of our listeners, Sir Bear, was out there. He was actually talking about a sighting that he had. And for those of you who don't have the number is 707-200-3520. Again, that number is 707-200-3520. And Bear, if you're listening, you can go ahead and call in, and maybe we can hear that story real quick before we go.
And for those
But,
of you that want to see the actual document, you can go to the Facebook page for Beyond the Strange. It is located there. Or if
Thank
you
you,
want to
Les.
contact me on DM through Twitter, I'll be happy to send it to you.
Yeah. Also, if you like, you can go ahead and write to beyondthestrange@gmail.com. I'll be happy to reply back with a copy of the Miller document, and it's a lot easier to read that way too. So for those of you who would like to try it, to listen to that, that would like to look at that document, please do. And I do believe we have Sir Bear calling in right now.
Hey, Dave, your mic's a little hot. You might want to back off that or turn that down.
Thanks, Bear.
Hey, no problem. Yeah, I had a sighting. I was a scoutmaster. Got my certification in 1978. About 2 years after that, we went on a 50-mile hike. Okay. And one of the things that we do on those hikes is we remove trash from the trails and things like that. And I'll tell you basically where it is. I'm not going to tell you specifically where it is because I don't want people going up there with things to harm those things because they are intelligent, okay, beyond belief, okay. But it was a general area, Highway 80. There's the road called the Ice Plant Road, or very similar to that. In between there and what's called Desolation, which is where the tree line is, okay. And we went out and we got our day hike in, and we called the ranger out to come pick the stuff up, which he did, and he was there, and the weather started getting a little bit on the squirrely side, so we kind of decided we were gonna pitch the tent. The ranger said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and spend the night with the scoutmasters and, everything. And we were sitting in there having a cup of coffee and everything, waiting for things to chill out before we started, getting, the guys, the boys settled down. And then, we would, sort of post a guard around in shifts, sort of thing, just for protection. And it was just a little bit after it got dark. We started hearing some, brush, on the other side of the pond kind of move around a little bit, just like an animal or whatever. But then we started hearing these big splashes in the pond. And we got our, big flashlights out, big magnet lights out and everything, and we kind of snuck out there to see what was going on. And just about the time we did, we turned around and turned the flashlight on as one of the Bigfoot, there were two, both males, throwing these giant rocks I estimate these rocks to be about 100 to 150 pounds in weight. Okay? And these Bigfoot, they had opposing thumbs.
Hmm.
And when you shine the light, at them, you could see that they had red eyes.
Was that because of the reflection of the light but in their iris?
So anyway, what happened was as soon as we turned the light on them, they immediately turned around and ran away. And they're, and you could tell they were definitely males because they had the plumbing to prove it. And so we decided, well, we got, 8 to 10 boys there, and a tent is no match for 100 to 150 pound rock.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided we were going to just, real quickly, pack it up, throw it in the Ranger truck, and we got out of there. And the only other thing I can tell you about it is we got the face, okay? Got a glimpse of that on one of them, really good. It had a beard. The beard was the same size as the coat. The coat was, reddish brown. And they looked like they were probably, I would say teenagers or young adult, as a guess, okay? And the nose, the mouth was really big. I mean, the jowls on those things, were like 3 times the size of a person. Mm-hmm. And their nose, it was down like a person, except for they had like a big nose with big nostrils. And that's about all I can tell you about it. They were definitely hairy creatures, and I would not want to run across one.
Bear, did it sound like anything that was described tonight from the Miller document that you could point out? And besides the facial features, the nostrils, these things are huge. By the way, of course they're huge.
Yeah.
Lifting up big boulders like that.
The ones I saw guesstimated they were 7.5 to 8 feet tall, and they weighed probably somewhere around 600 to 800 pounds.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Not something I would want to come across in the wild.
No, not even. Steve, did you want to ask Bear anything?
Well, you mentioned about the nostrils and the facial features of it, the nostrils. Because the Miller document, I believe, they speak about with the monkeys, with the old world and new world, about the animal really changes as it gets older. It grows into its body, and one of the distinct features is the nostrils.
Well, the ones I saw, if you look at it, the way, I remember it. It looked like a human nose with humongous nostrils, okay? It was, with kind of a pointed up little bit of a nose, because you could definitely see the openings to the nostrils,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a big nose.
Bear, how much distance was there from the bottom of the nose, so to speak, to the top lip? Or could you make out?
It was hard to tell, but to me it looked like it was farther than a human, for sure, because it had a big lip. It looked like the lip came down, farther than a human. But the mouth on that thing was humongous.
Hey, Bear?
Did it have
it was,
a large jaw? Could you really see?
Oh yeah,
a pronounced
yeah.
jaw?
The jaw was 3 or 4 times the size of a human jaw.
Really?
Yeah, it was big and gnarly. I would not want to get bit by one of those things. It would just, it looked like there was so much power in that jaw that it would just, it looked like it could bite through a 4x4.
Hey, Bear?
I mean, it just like, and the way the muscle features on it were, it was more like a gorilla. I mean, I don't know how to explain it.
Hey, Bear.
Yeah.
Les is trying to ask you a question. Can you? I don't know if you can hear him or not. Go ahead, Les.
Bear, can you hear me?
Just barely less.
What I wanted to ask is, if you think that the flashlight that you were using actually caused the reflection of red in the eyes?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Wow. Thanks a lot, Bear, for calling in with that. We really appreciate it. And if you have anything else, man, definitely call in. Anytime. We're really.
Okay. About the only other thing I can tell you is those things they put out. I couldn't smell them because they were downwind, but you could just feel that they had extreme intelligence.
There you go.
The feeling, the vibes that we got were, hey, you're encroaching on our territory. Go.
Right.
We went.
Well, that's
okay.
probably a very smart thing to do. And
well, I mean, we could have done some stupid stuff, but we're a little smarter than that, But
good.
we had things to protect ourselves, but we did not want to use anything like that unless there was a intimate danger, and these things were on the other side of the pond, and they were not. So we watched out and we got out of there.
Absolutely, man.
We could.
No, I totally understand. You don't want to be a hero, and that's definitely what you want to do. Hey, Bear, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate you for calling in. We'll talk later.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah. My philosophy is if it ain't attacking you, you don't attack it.
There you go.
It's just like, well. So anyway, be cool, and be safe, be happy, and enjoy, and have a great rest of the night.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Bear.
All right, brother. Be well all.
That was Sir Bear giving us his encounter with, I guess you would call it a North American monkey. I mean, this is, we're in California, and that was the Bay Area, pretty much he was talking about.
Neteros pacificus, I guess.
Right. I mean, those are like the redwoods, pretty much. That'd be go ahead, Steve.
But that shows you, though, another reason probably why the government hasn't disclosed something like it is the way they look. They're not pleasing to the eye.
No.
We're scared of them, and we basically see them as I think that the human mindset sees that creature as a threat.
Predator.
When we come across these creatures, there's something that the human species, somewhere along the lines, have been a part of the evolution of these creatures, and we don't care to cross their path. We're afraid of them. That we see them as monsters, and don't want to have anything to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
We're on the.
So then we'll probably end up trying to. That's why they probably try to kill them.
Because if Bigfoot proves anything, it proves that we are not on the top of the food chain. We're actually still below it, the top.
Oh yes, absolutely. And it's arrogant of man to even think that we're on top of the food chain and everyone is beneath us. That's definitely not the case. Gentlemen, it's been a great evening. I mean, oh my gosh, I've learned so much, and I'm so glad that you guys were able to come onto the show and discuss this document and bring this document to our attention. This has been wonderful for the Beyonders to listen to this. Steve, do you have any closing comments before we go?
I just want to thank you, Dave, and you, Les, for inviting me on tonight. I've had a great time. It's been a great experience for me. Just can't thank you enough for having me on, and hope all the listeners enjoyed the show.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you coming on with Les also and bringing this document and going over it and just letting all the listeners know that this is truth. I mean, you can't deny when you see this type of proof and evidence. The experience that this man had was fascinating. I mean, we don't even know half of what he's been through. I mean, I hope we can find more in the future. Les, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah. First, let me thank you once again for having myself and Steve on. I had so much fun, Steve. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I just couldn't have done it by myself. And thank you both for hanging out with me. It was a lot of fun doing this week.
It's been really fun. But unfortunately, we do have to get going. But thanks again, everyone. Thanks again, Les. And thanks again, Steve. And thank you, Bear, for calling in and giving us that story. I mean, that's what the show is about. We want to get everyone to call in and give us your guys' experience, concerns, whatever you have. Let us know, please. That's what the show is about. So, in closing, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for listening and participating. Thanks, Les and Steve, again. I want to thank our producer, Holographic. I'd also like to thank my good friend, Alan Hall, who writes and plays some of the bumper music and closing music. Also, a big round of applause for Brian Anderson's voice. You can find Brian Anderson more at brianandersonvoice.com. And until next time, I want to just say be safe, be happy, but most of all, be strange. Have a good night, everyone, and we'll see you next week.